we've been in the market for the past 10 years. And basically what we have been doing, we've been researching and continuing researching for 10 years what are the essential tools that are required in order for us to perform all the activities we need for a successful project. We started our way when we actually didn't even know what is medical device. So we were approaching companies, small companies, mid-sized companies, large companies in the area of a non-medical device. It could be like government, it could be low-tech, it could be some medical device without really understanding what are the needs of those companies. About half of the period of the time that we have been existed, we met some interesting people down the road, and they showed us that our solution has some unique capabilities that can easily be adopted for the medical device requirements. So we have been investigating that, as I mentioned, and we have decided to focus on that segment of the market. Basically, the company has several lines of products. What unique about it, it's that they are all connected, and this is really relates back to the concept of SIMIS, which I totally agree that we need to be unified. We need to try at least to be unified. In this lecture, I'm going to show you some tools that are essential for you in order to manage that project. Yet, they are not necessarily has to be the tools that we have seen or going to see today. That could be Excel, that could be our WhatsApp group, that could be our Dropbox service that we are using. But, as it was already mentioned until now, our emphasis is that there are solutions for you. And our target market is more towards the small, medium business size. We're looking for those beginners, starting for very small groups. They can be in the incubator right here at the Technion, like a company that you probably heard about, Argo Medical. Or they could be Luminis, or they could be Given Imaging. So I'm going to review all that with you quickly about those 5 tools. And I will give you some examples. Our solution is based on web, mobile, and desktop. Basically, we're trying to give you everything you need in one place. And as I mentioned, we target towards the small, medium business. And we give some supporting services to that solution. So we just don't leave you alone. We are very close to the market. Right now, the people that are basically going with the customer through the audits, through the first submission to the CE, to the FDA, to doing the 510K or the PMA, is our professional people. So we are very close to what the market really needs. We understand the problem, and we practice it with the customer, and we take the conclusion back into our roadmap. So that's what's unique about a company like Orcanos, which is small. Okay? So before I start, I wanted to show you something. You will have to excuse me because it's a YouTube. So if there is an advertising, we will have to wait a second. Hopefully. So it was something to wake us up a little bit. And the reason I choose this movie is not because it's about medical. It's because it's about our human behavior, okay? We think one thing, and we need to achieve another. So if we are struggling to get our first customer, maybe the next one will be on the other direction. So we need something to get us focused all the time. We need to collaborate. We need to communicate. We need to talk with each other. We need to share knowledge. We need to learn from our mistakes. And for that, we need some tools. And if you are small, you must have those tools. Because the prices we pay for a small company could be fatal. Could be something that will take us to the wrong direction, and we unfortunately have seen some of those. So our emphasis here is to show you those tools, at the same time telling you, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take that step forward and take what is necessary to take as a decision in order to be able to avoid such a mistakes. So, what are those tools? Before we do that, I was not able to hold myself from telling you a little bit about Germany. And since we are also hosted here under Mckit with Siemens, I think this is something that will be interesting to see and hear. Let me skip that one and talk to you about the success. What is a success? Let's define what is a success. And if we define that success well enough, let's try to imitate that. Let's learn from the success. And why we can learn from the German market for medical device. What you're going to see here now in the next 2-3 slides is something that has been written by one of our customers, Dr. Ingo, from Berlin area. Over 30 pages of white paper. Not telling how good our solution for them. Defining the problem they had to face, and then there is a solution. Okay? So in the German market, in the European market, in general, you can see, and it's well known, that the elderly population is growing. What does that mean as a medical device vendor? That means that if we are not start thinking mobile, if we will not start thinking mobility, we're losing our advantage. There was an example here before that we're talking about how they shrink down the size of medical device in order to support the sales cycle. Well, this is one side of the equation, but then there are people that need assistance. That market is growing rapidly. And furthermore than that, it's also growing outside of the Western world. Okay? So let's pay attention for that. We have been enforced a strong regulatory, which is growing all the time. We'll see in a second why. At the same time, there is a demand for innovation. We've seen watches. We've seen wear devices. Okay? But the time that we need to deliver that technology got shortened. The time that that technology can exist on the shelf, it got shortened. For competition and for demand. So you need to develop fast, with same high quality, and with the extensive restrictions that are growing at all times. The 510K was invented about 35 years ago, and nothing much changed from there. But 35 years ago, medical device was much simpler than today. So there is a whole new direction going on that area to replace that 510K. So if you are used to one way working with the FDA, get ready to get more work to do with the same manpower. The same goes already for the European market, where the MDD, if you're looking back at the MDD, was consisted of 23 articles and 12 annexes. The replacement of the MDR is now 10 chapters with 97 articles and 60 annexes. You are not going to grow your manpower in the same rapid growth that you've seen here. So how you can handle that? You need tools. You need something that will be different from what you're doing today. You cannot freeze yourself. What else we can learn? Why go far? It's right across the Mediterranean. The third in growth is the German market. 23 billion euros a year. Who makes that revenue? If you look throughout that, you will see that just a small business that can be one of you generate about 2 billion euros a year. if you look in a second how this is being spread out, you will see how interesting it is that only 9% from the revenue the company generates are invested in research. Can you read us that number? 9% of the revenue invested back in research. How come? You go back into the budget of the Israeli companies, 70% invested in R&D. And the company is 12 years old. There is something there that is worth looking. Okay? This shows us that there is potential for those small companies. Those small companies, 20 to 100 people only, can generate about 4 billion euros a year out of the 23. This is amazing. All our German customers are very small. They are less even than 20. They last over 12 years, and they are profitable. So we can do it. We can do it here in the Israeli market. We can be better, and we should be better. So if you're thinking about Germany, you can also see how it's being spread out, and there are unique areas in Germany that are worth investigating because the government support that directly. So if that's the definition of a success, let's take a look about the tools that can help us. First, we have those 5 tools I'm going to talk about, one in each. I'm going to give some examples. And if you have questions, you may stop me at any time. Feel free. The first tool that we need is a centralized area where we can actually look at the same data. Now, if we're using our Outlook, if we're using Excel, we're using Dropbox, we're using some spreadsheets or some homegrown system, and they are not connected, we cannot create those dashboards very easily. So try to find a way to bring them all to the same place. It's correct for enterprises, and it's correct for small, medium business. It's the same issue. Put everybody on the same marketing target. Let them be shared with your ideas. Let them contribute. Let them be aware of their mistakes. Okay? Those reports can be some pre-audit reports, such as in this example, where you can see that those risks are orphans. There is no relationships. There is no traceability. It's a problematic issue on the 62304, and of course on the 6601. And you can see already where it's being located. In a second, I'm going to take a look what there is there in the risk that we need to pay attention for. But just by knowing that we have violated the basic requirement of risk management, it's already bring our stage to another level. And that pre-audit report can be automatically and should be automatically broadcast to the relevant people. Don't create unnecessary noise where it's not going to contribute to the success of your project. Another important dashboard that you should probably take a look for is a very flexible traceability report. A report that can show you traceability not just from risks, which are obviously. What about service calls? What about complaints? When a complaint comes in and it's marked as risk associated, is there a risk associated to that complaint? This is a recent comment by a last year audit that we have been participating in. And we are participating in the audit rooms with our customer, supporting them with the tools that we have. Is that risk has some mitigation? Is it by design? Is it by documentation? Is it by validation? Where all that data resides? And if it is by validation, is there any result associated with that? So let's create those dashboards that we can gather. It doesn't matter if it's separated systems or if it's a homogeneous system. Just make sure that you have some tools that can access the data in that format. Another important issue, which usually comes up really early in our phase, is the document management. When you're looking and talking with the quality assurance personnel, you find that as the company grows, more work needs to be done on the document control area. And if it's one person, then after another year, it's 2 person, 3 person, and all what they do, they're just chasing them after one another to sign the documents. The VP R&D in our customer, once they got the FDA approval, has a pile of documents on his desk at all time. So we need to be able to let the data flow among us more fluently. So we must have some sort of tool that will allow us to manage those documents, their signatures, their obsoletes, their revisions. And if that's to the design or relates to the CAPA or to the ECO, let us know about that. Okay? And if you're familiar with the ALM terminology, which is application lifecycle management, mostly associated with software, then looking at your solution as a system, as overlooked system, breaking down that solution into the separate components and measure each component either by quality or by validation or by complaints. Let's see where your customer complaining more. Is it complaining on the cardiology hardware or on the cardiology monitor? Where our roadmap should be next? Because if you leave the problem outside of the organization, it costs you 3 times more. If you solve the problem inside the organization, it costs you third of the estimated price. Okay, so those are the dashboards that we are looking at. What else we need? We need something that will help us to manage the standard that we need to comply with, right? So 13485, which is the overall standard for quality management system. It includes complaint management, document management, and many other elements. The 62304 if you have software. The IEC 6601, obviously anywhere at all times. Rarely you don't need it. Verification and validation, and automation. Once you go up into production, you get lucky. You have customers, you have areas, continentals that you need to approach. Now you're fighting on the cost. And if you're fighting on the cost, you need to relocate your production. Well, you're starting here in Yokneam producing the first 40 systems, but you cannot produce 400 systems. You have to go somewhere else. Because the cost for that is much too high to be competitive and profitable, and leave 9% only for research. So if you need to support remote production, then you need some automation. You need control of those remote productions. Okay? So a term of an ATE, automated tested equipment, you can see an example out there if you wish for, with Polaris. Shows you the integration between the physical action happening inside the production line here in Flextronics or in Romania or in Japan, and remotely from here, Haifa, the COO can see on a dashboard all the production lines, all the automation equipments and their results, and of course I can understand by extraction of the serial number and lot numbers, because that takes us back to the post-marketing stage, the complaint area. So quickly, risk. With the risk system that actually has all the attributes of risk according to the FMEA, with the RPN calculation, with the mitigation, with the location on the document side, everything consists in one place, with the ability to produce those as the documents and do the traceability. Requirement in general there are many requirements that you need to support. I will not go through all of them. It varies between different products, but if we're talking about market requirement, product requirement, system requirement, software requirement, hardware requirement, mechanical requirement, testing requirements, all those types of requirements has to be consolidated in one place and presented as a document. So try to find a place where you can manage all of them in one area to support it 62304. And some isolated areas such as service center with the ability to define your customers, have some multi-sites, have representatives, have support people, and continue from there from the service center back to your product and do the mitigation and whatever is necessary. So a service center tool and a document management tool. It allows you to put the technical file or the 510K submission, have it managed in one place, sign it electronically on your mobile. You're not hooked up to one location. We have full support of the 21 CFR Part 11, which is with electronic signature. You want to have all that in one place if you can. So I mentioned document control. We'll skip that because the time is getting shorter. But eventually the result will be that you don't need to use paper anymore. Think paperless. You start archiving paper, you start losing control of the documents and the processes. So the final result should be a 1 A4 page that concludes the historical revisions of the documents. As you can see, has 2 revisions here, 3rd revision approved. That one become obsolete. Now it's been signed by our QA manager and our administration. And you can see the last state of that. And you can always see where it's also located. You can understand it's an SOP, Standard Operation Procedure type of a document. And it's become transparent to everyone and available to everyone. One of the other tools that you always try to find is where I put my data. Now, where I put my data creates some problems because usually it can be a file system that has no revision. Then I start creating folders of this is approved, this is obsolete, this is under review, then there are more product, and you duplicate that, and then you need to create Excel sheets that points out between documents. Okay? So have a place where you can store all your data. You want to distribute an executable binary to your customers or to your production line. You need to control the revision that is being distributed and obsolete the older one. So you need a place to create storage, and you have the ability to search on that area as well, because you have many external resources that are using the data. So not necessarily have it as a cloud, but necessarily have a common area where you can store all your data and files. And last is the communication. 70% of the problems that are being created throughout the project relate to somehow communication. We say one thing and we create another one. I've just been in a design review yesterday in one of my customer sites. I was sitting there. On my right, there was the project manager. On my left, there was the R&D personnel. And again on my right, there was the system architect. And then the system architect tells the programmer in the spec, in the PRD, I want a yellow button. You open the design spec, the programmer create orange button. So I want a yellow. He said, but I want to give you orange. I asked for yellow. And he said, well, I'll give you multicolor. No, I asked for yellow. That kind of communication only can be achieved by design review sitting 4 people in the same room for at least an hour and a half. It's 6 hours cost for your organization. You don't look for it. You don't see it in a paycheck. But you spend 6 hours, it's over half a day. Over half a day to decide if it's a yellow or orange.
Only easily.
Almost correct. But we can change it. We can change it. It's in our hands. It's not rocket science. Communication is something essential for everyone and for our customers. So why not? So what we do? We use WhatsApp. Another tool. Okay? And then we decide to take outsource in India, but they don't have smartphones. So they're outside of the WhatsApp. So they cannot see you. They cannot hear you. So we have created an online chat inside the system. And it's not just that you have that flag telling you, well, somebody is asking for your attention. It's also telling you your attention is required on this DMS document in specific, and it talks about on a private session, because I don't want to expose it to my customer, on a private session to do some action. Now that is being archived in the database. Now that person already left, but it's there. Okay? So communication is something that we need to pay attention for. It's something that you have to try to find a solution. Yeah, WhatsApp will work fine, and other tools as well. But if you can bring it all into one place, then definitely you solved some major issue. And you created a working environment that is transparent, both for you internally and for your customers as well. So those are the 5 tools that we have been seeing. And actually I would say that we have been seeing in very early stage, when we just start getting into a new customer, you can find those 5 tools. They have chats, they have Dropbox, they have file system, they have Excel sheets, they have Word documents, they have some homegrown freeware type of systems. And when we come there, then we just start bringing everything into one area. And usually we start with the document control, which is the easiest one. So 5 tools, and I hope that we're related somehow to your existing state. Some example about Germany as a good example that I think that is interesting. And if you have any questions, just feel free. Okay? Thank you very much.
תודה רמי. טוב, נעשה סיכום קצרצר, ולאחר הסיכום